Hi folks, welcome to the Abrams Children's Books Spring-Summer 2022 preview, Picture Book Edition. My name is Gabby Paez and I'm the Children's Marketing and Publicity Assistant. Happy to start with Pretty Perfect Kitty Corn. In this story, Kitty decides she wants to paint Unicorn, because Unicorn is perfect. Everyone says so. He is so flawless and so faultless that he is frankly sublime, says Parakeet. My affection for his perfection makes it easy to rhyme, says Gecko. Those are some pretty high expectations to live up to. And Unicorn can't help but wonder, if he's not absolutely perfect and majestic all the time, will Kitty ever want to be his best friend anymore? When Kitty finishes her masterpiece, Unicorn sees that he isn't so perfect after all. In fact, he has sat in some paint and has a paint bum. His mane is purple, his horn is shiny, says Gecko. But there's paint all over his huge white hiney, says Parakeet. He feels so ashamed that Kitty saw him like that. But Kitty doesn't care. She is perfectly content to be covered in paint alongside Unicorn. And so he realizes that with his best kitty corn friend, Unicorn can be messy. I love how this pair shows readers that it's okay to embrace our flaws and show the messiest parts of ourselves. It is adorable and silly while showing that everyone has insecurities and we can see one another for who we truly are. Kids can put a lot of pressure on themselves, but can see that true friends will love you as you are. It is a glittery, loving collaboration from best-selling friends Shannon, Hale, and LeUyen, Pham. I hope this story makes everyone feel as warm and fuzzy inside as it made me feel. And with that, I turn it over to our wonderful creators.
Hola, hola de nuevo, soy Blanca Gómez, estuve aquí hace unos meses hablando del primer libro que escribí, nada más ilustrar, Big House, que estaba inspirado en algo que me pasó de verdad. Y estoy aquí ahora para hablaros de mi segundo libro, que también está inspirado en algo que me pasó, aunque parezca difícil de creer. Se llama Dress Up Day, Día de Disfraces, pues está editado en inglés y en español. Dress Up Day cuenta la historia de una niña que está deseando ir a la fiesta de disfraces de su cole y enseñar su disfraz de conejita que se ha hecho con su mamá a todos los demás y a los demás. Pero el día de la fiesta se pone malita y se tiene que quedar en casa y obviamente se pone muy triste por ello. Al día siguiente se levanta y se siente mejor, pero sigue muy triste porque se ha perdido la fiesta, y van a estar todos hablando de la fiesta y ella no ha ido. Y entonces a su madre se le ocurre una idea que parece una idea genial, que es que vaya a disfrazar ese día en su cole. Dicho y hecho, se pone otra vez muy contenta, tiene unas ganas enormes de llegar al cole. Y cuando llega, chan chan, se da cuenta de que a lo mejor no es tan buena idea cuando está ella sola disfrazada en el cole y todos ellos la miran alucinados. Y luego pasan más cosas que a lo mejor hacen que sí que sea una buena idea finalmente, pero no os voy a contar, tendréis que leerlo. ¿Y por qué he escrito esta historia? Pues en primer lugar la he escrito para mí yo de cuando era pequeña y me he tomado un poco la revancha. Porque nunca imaginé aquel día fatídico cuando estaba sola y muy triste en el cole y muy agobiada y muy frustrada, que algún día recordaría esa anécdota de forma entrañable y divertida, y menos aún que escribiera un libro sobre ello, y aquí estamos. Y bueno, con eso que quiero decir, que en la vida hay momentos buenos y momentos malos. Ahora estamos en uno bastante malo, pero normalmente los momentos malos no son tan malos como pensamos en el momento. Y forman parte de la vida y forman parte de nosotros, nos hacen crecer y aprender. Y al final, aunque parezca también muy difícil de creer en el momento, pasan y lo recordaremos luego de una forma completamente distinta. En segundo lugar, he escrito este libro para todos aquellos que se han sentido distintos, diferentes e inseguros por ello. Y de hecho, a todos ellos le han dedicado el libro, a todos los que saben lo que se siente. Y bueno, les he querido decir que no están solos, que siempre va a haber alguien que se sienta como tú, aunque no lo parezca, y siempre va a haber alguien al que le guste como eres tú. Y aunque parezca difícil de creer en esos momentos en los que te sientes así, veréis que es verdad y que además es mejor. Como se demuestra en el libro, es más divertido si somos distintos. Cuando tuve la idea, lo primero que hice aparte de escribir la historia, son hacer muchos bocetos y muchos libritos como este para ver cómo se desarrollaba la historia. Una vez que ya tenía la historia, el siguiente paso fue centrarme en los personajes. Primero en nuestra protagonista, que empecé con un boceto muy simple, pero que me hizo mucha gracia. Yo creo que ahí estaba ya la personalidad de la niña. Y bueno, luego hice bastantes pruebas hasta que llegamos a nuestra conejita final. Y luego me centré en el resto de niños, porque son un montón de niños, y para mí era importante que cada niño fuera distinto y que cada niño tuviera su personalidad. Por último, hice las ilustraciones con collage y ceras de colores y lápices de colores, y pintando todo luego en el ordenador. Las ceras son el material que usaba en el cole, era el material estrella con el que hacíamos todos nuestros trabajos y nuestros dibujos, así que creo que ha sido buena idea retomarlos para este libro. Y esto es todo, espero que disfrutéis con las aventuras y desventuras de nuestra conejita y que lo paséis, al menos también como yo me lo he pasado recordando esta historia y haciendo este libro. Y muchas gracias por estar ahí.
Hello, I'm Andrea Beaty, and I'm the author of I Love You Like Yellow, illustrated by the marvelous Vashti. This is a book about the small moments, the tiny things that make up our days, that make up, ultimately, our memories and our lives. The flavors, the colors, the sounds, the feelings that we have. I wrote it because when my kids were little, we took these amazing vacations and just really traveled all around the country. And we would go and try to see, the big deal sites, all the things that people need to see if they live there. And so, for instance, we went to Mount Rushmore. But now my kids are grown up, and when I asked them about that trip, they're like, yeah, there was a mountain with people on it. But that ice cream with the crunchy toppings. Oh, that was the best ice cream I've ever had anywhere. And then there was that lemonade we got. It was so sweet, and it was so tart. Oh, it was the best thing ever. And so I wanted to explore how those tiny, brilliant, perfect moments, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, but how they shape our lives and how they form our memories. So whether they be crunchy or crispy or sweet or like tart, I love you forever with all of my heart. That's how this book goes. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you love it as much as I do, which is a lot. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hi, I am Nancy Johnson James. I'm the author of the book Brown, The Many Shades of Love, and the upcoming book Black, The Many Wonders of My World. I like to think about both of these books as invitations. Brown, The Many Shades of Love invites the reader to think about skin color, their own skin color, the color of skin of people they know and love, people in their community, and to also explore language and how the language we use around skin color can influence how we feel about people and how we feel about ourselves. In Black, the invitation is to the imagination. Because the color Black carries weight with it, both in relation to how it's used around identity and also just how it's used in art and in other different ways, there is an opportunity to think more expansively about Black and about using the darkness to dream and to wonder and to explore and to create ideas. My desire with both books is to inspire creativity and to inspire dialogue and to really help everyone to think about our relationships to each other and our relationships to the world around us. The artwork in both books is amazing. The illustrator, Constance, has a style that is just so colorful and textured and rich and inviting. And I think that the way the books are illustrated really provide just another rich layer to the invitations inside of the book.
So my name is Sabrena Khadija. I was the illustrator for We Have a Dream. It was a very fun, challenging illustration project for me. I'd never taken on such an expansive project like this before, where I had to work on such a wide range of portraits and taking on the challenge of creating portraits that really spoke to the individual subjects. Really loved learning about each person and trying to take what I learned from that and use it to support Mya-Rose's words and to support each person's stories. So the first illustration I worked on was for Autumn, and because of that it has a very special place for me in this project. It was what laid down the groundwork for how I was going to proceed forward with the look and feel of the rest of these portraits. So Autumn, as a water protector, she had like some very beautiful, like powerful, like reference images that made it very easy to translate her likeness into these portraits. It also gave me the opportunity to try to create a concept that was a portrait, but also let me play around with like how I wanted to communicate what she does as an activist. I wanted to like play around with like how I could use, again, like shapes and textures and like line work to try and infer like the water imagery without being so obvious. And again, it was what kicked off this project for me and made me excited to move forward. So one of my favorite pieces that I did for We Have a Dream was actually my portrait that I did of Sumakarena. She's an Ecuadorian indigenous environmental protector. And I just really enjoyed how this illustration came out. I felt I was able to include things that would like help make these illustrations more identifiable. She has indigenous facial markings and jewelry that was included in the portrait. I included a background that kind of spoke to or referenced the Amazon rainforest a bit. I love plants, I love green, I love greenery, so it was really fun layering in like different like shapes and leaves and colors, and also including indigenous like fauna, wildlife in the illustration as well to solidify the Amazon rainforest reference.
Hi, my name is Ashlee Latimer, and I'm the author of Frances Discovers Possible, which is illustrated by the incredible Shahrzad Maydani. Frances Discovers Possible is a picture book about a little girl named Frances who is shamed and bullied at school for being fat. But with the help of her Baba and their shared love of words, she overcomes that shame and rediscovers the possibility in both herself and the world around her. At its core, Frances Discovers Possible is an invitation to young readers to embrace who they are, live without apology, and take control of their own stories. I'm so excited that Frances is coming into the world at a time when we're already making progress in this direction. And I really hope that she will be part of the legacy of acceptance and inclusion that we are passing on to the next generation. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about Frances and helping us share her story with kids everywhere.
Hi, I'm Hyewon. I'm happy to share my new book, Lion Needs a Shot. The little lion from Lion Needs a Haircut came back with his little sister Lulu, and they go to doctor's office this time. Sometimes I learn from my kids how to be brave and wise, and that inspired this story. This is how my studio looks like when I'm working on the book. I put everything on the wall to see how the whole book looks at a glance. I used color pencils for this book. To make sure they all look the same on every page, I decide the colors for each of characters before I start the final art. And this is my favorite spread. I love this spread because I think it shows each character perfectly. And it's just before they go to Dr. Brown's office. They all seemed confident and happy here.
My name is Bahrampour, and I'm the author and illustrator of Monsters in the Fog. which is the story of a donkey named Hakim, who is bringing a present to a friend of his who lives on top of a mountain. And it's a very foggy day, so he keeps seeing very strange shapes in the fog that he thinks are monsters, but then as he gets closer and the fog dissipates, he realizes that there's a logical explanation and they're not so scary after all. The theme of the book is really that we need to challenge our first impressions of scary situations or other people or anything that we're afraid of, and that the closer you get to something and the more you learn about it, the less threatening, the less scary it is. And one thing I tried to make sure in this book was that even though it takes place on a foggy day, that all the pictures wouldn't be too gray. I wanted to make sure that they were still a little bit colorful. Another thing I enjoyed doing was putting in details from Iran, where I grew up. So the amulet on the wall is to ward off the evil eye. There's a samovar there, the saddlebag, and the donkey itself is a Persian onager, an Iranian donkey, which also was a nice bright color to go against the grays of the fog. And I think my favorite pictures to do were the ones that showed the monsters and then revealed what the monsters were. So here's one that looks like a monster in the fog, but then turns out to be a dog who's bringing bricks up over the mountain to fix up her house. And at one point they see what looks like a giant skull, very scary. But that just turns out to be a bear on a runaway tricycle. And I hope that in these anxious times that it conveys to children in a humorous way that things are never as scary as they at first seem, and that we should never let our anxiety keep us from doing the things that we need to do or want to do.
Hi, I'm Ruth Chan, illustrator of How Old is Mr. Tortoise, written by Dev Petty, and I am here to talk to you guys about a spread that I made and to talk you through a little bit about what I was thinking about. So the spread we're going to talk about is a big math spread where all the characters are doing the math to try to figure out how old Mr. Tortoise is. And in the original manuscript, it had sort of the text of the math. So it says 100 plus 10 plus 5 equals, and then the next spread is the big reveal of how old Mr. Tortoise is. But I felt like, you know, this is such a big climactic moment in the book. It needed a little bit of like a pause, like a little moment. So I added an extra page where after all the characters are yelling out the different numbers, the next page is the same characters, and they're all sort of trying to figure out like, wait, what is that math? Like, what is 100 plus 10 plus 5? And there's very little text, very little speech, mostly them just going, I love that because one, that's very much me. I am terrible at math and it takes me forever to do any sort of math equation. And two, I feel like it gives the readers a pause, like that moment of anticipation before we get that big reveal. And it also gives us a glimpse into the characters and, you know, what they do in these moments of uncertainty and what their faces look like. And that was actually the most fun for me, was drawing their facial expressions, the walrus being my favorite. So that's a little insight into one of the spreads in How Old is Mr. Tortoise. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me.